Now, let's say that you've got a target system and you've discovered that there are multiple interfaces on it. If there are multiple interfaces, that means that there are multiple networks. Where there are multiple networks, there are multiple systems. You can use a session that we get through Metasploit to be able to route through that remote system and gain access to those other networks. Let's talk about how we go about doing that. I'm going to pick on Metasploitable again, and I'm going to use a different exploit this time. I'm going to use a Tomcat exploit, and we're going to use Tomcat Manager Deploy. And I'm going to set my R host to be 192.168.86.68. And then I'm going to set my payload here to be Java Meterpreter and then reverse TCP. Because we're getting in through a Java application server, we're going to use the Java interpreter, and the reverse TCP, as I've mentioned before, means we want the target system to fire a connection back to us. So we're going to say reverse TCP. Let's take a look at the options again. And I actually need to set the R port, and I also set the username and password here. Tomcat in this case is running on port 8180. And you could use the services to see that Tomcat is actually running on 8180. And I also happen to know that the username and password here are Tomcat. You could use a module that Metasploit has available, which will do a username and password attack on Tomcat to determine whether it's a commonly used username and password. But to save time, I happen to know what these are. And if you had a Metasploitable 2 system, this is what the username and password would be. So now all I need to do is set my L host to be 192.168.86.22. That's me. And I need that so that the payload can be fired back at me. And now all I need to do is say exploit. I've got my session open, and I'm going to just say if config, and you can see that I've got multiple interfaces. So now all I need to do is say run autoroute, and I'm going to say -p to have it print out the routes. So I could say now run autoroute -s, and I'm going to say 172.30.42.0/24 is going to be the target network. And we're going to add that through 192.168.86.68. Now, I could also see whether there are other networks that may be available. So now if I look at the routing table, I've got the list of my routes that I have available. I could also run autoroute -p. I could get the routing table list. So 172.30.42.0 is going to run through session 1. In order to do what we call pivoting, you set routes to run through the sessions that you have open on your remote system. And then when you send traffic to that target network, it's going to get routed through that other network. That does require that the target system be able to forward packets from one interface to another, which isn't always the case. But you can change your local routing table to go through Meterpreter sessions. One way to do that is to use the autoroute module, and you do that by run autoroute.